ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. We will commence the Friday Atma Vichara session by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham as it has been captured in this book, Ramana Answers, Self-Enquiry 1900 to 1950, a wonderful book by our founder president, which compiles all the answers, all the questions put by many devotees to Bhagavan on Atma Vichara and Bhagavan's answers to them between 1900 to 1950. And we have been meditating by His grace on the question and answers put to Bhagavan between 1936 to 1950. And last 2 weeks we looked at the 89th question and answer. And the 90th and the 91st question is a continuation of the same conversation. Since the 90th and the 91st question is relevant to a part of the answer given by Bhagavan in 89th, I'll read out that answer and then we will meditate on this week's question answer. Following this, we will have a 20 minutes Atma Vichara session, a practice of self-enquiry. Then today, Nandakumar ji would be contemplating about Atma Vichara as it would be from talks or from Ramana Gita. And finally, we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. The 89th question was by a devotee, but the same devotee is asking now the 90th and the 21st question as well. His question was, I have read Who Am I? While inquiring who the I is, I cannot hold it for any length of time. Secondly, I have no interest in the environment, but yet I have hopes that I shall find some interest in life. Answering to this question, Bhagavan had said, all things are like bubbles on water. You are the water, and the objects are the bubbles. They cannot exist apart from the water, but they are not quite the same as the water. So Bhagavan here had given an answer about how the whole of the dream world, upon waking, we will find it to be unreal. Like that, the whole of the waking dream that we are now experiencing, upon waking into the self, we will find that it is unreal. And in the continuation of that, Bhagavan had said that there is only water. All the bubbles that we see are as objects are nothing but the water. So in continuation of that question answer, the devotee is asking, I feel I am like froth. I feel I am like froth. That means he feels that he is strongly identified with the bubble. Bhagavan says, cease that identification with the unreal and know your real identity. Then you will be firm and no doubts can arise. Then the devotee says, but I am the froth. Very strong is this identification. So he says, I am the froth. I am not the water. The water in the ocean, if I say it is everywhere, I don't feel myself like that. Therefore, I still feel I am like a froth. Bhagavan says, because you think that way, there is worry. It is a wrong imagination. Accept your true identity with the real. Be the water, not the froth. That is done by diving in. So here we see the same question as sadhakas, that though we may have an experience of the samadhi as or identification with the self at times, we cannot seem to continue to hold it at length. And this feeling that I am an individual creeps up, surpassing that identity where there was no identification in the samadhi. So the devotee says, I feel I am like the froth. I am like the bubble. And Bhagavan says that, cease that identification with the unreal. The trick to overcome that is not to entertain it, but to identify with the real, identify with the self, identify with that I am. And then even the I am merges in that pure silence. So Bhagavan is saying here that until we keep on identifying with the froth, with the bubble, we cannot transcend that identity. So the identity has to be shifted from the individual to the self, to the jiva bhava, to the self. And therefore Bhagavan we see has given us Atma Vichara. Every time the idea of a bubble rises, what is a bubble? In our case, the bubble is a thought and the conscious identification of ourselves with the thought. And the consciousness is the water, and the bubble is the mixture of that thought and the consciousness. Therefore, Bhagavan in this last explanation had given that you cannot exist apart from water. That is, the bubble cannot exist apart from the water, but they are not quite the same as the water. Though the thought cannot exist without the conscious recognition of it, but it is not quite the water itself. So Bhagavan is asking us to inquire, to whom is this thought? And therefore, we turn our attention from the object, from the bubble, which is thought plus consciousness, to the one who is aware of it, I. And when we further question, who am I? We recognize our identification as that unchanging, pure being consciousness, which never underwent any transformation. And when we start to meditate deeply on this I am, or in this being consciousness, we start to identify, as Bhagavan said, There is no change at all in that I amness. There is no change in the degree of that I am. It is not touched by any of the events that has happened in it, whether it is in the dream, whether it is in the waking. The I am continues to remain as I am. This, when we meditate and recognize more and more, we see that how the whole of the dream, upon waking, we find it to be unreal. Similarly, when we start identifying ourselves with what we really are as I am, we see that the whole of the waking has not actually changed us anything. Therefore, the whole of the waking experience is as equal to the experience of the dream. So this waking up to the real nature becomes very, very important. This deep recognition happens in the heart, in the self itself. And that is the real intelligence. That is the real recognition that happens. And when it is not in the brain, but in the pure experience of oneself, there is a clear realization that comes about that nothing really happened. And more, when we start to abide in our real nature, we understand that the bubble never existed. It was always the water. It was always consciousness. In fact, we never experienced anything apart from consciousness at all. It was always consciousness experiencing itself. And then its recognition makes us realize that the wrong imagination, which Bhagavan says in the next answer, the wrong imagination that it was a thought and its content and its meaning that made me feel we are separate and all was all an imagination. In fact, we experienced at all times ourselves. Nothing else was experienced. The self experienced itself without an iota of change. And the wrong imagination is the real ignorance. It is seeing the snake in a rope. The rope being the pure I am, which never undergoes any transformation. And it is because of the imagination of a snake, the rope seems to appear as though it is a snake, as a Jiva Bhava, as an individual concealed inside this name and form. And this recognition, Bhagavan says, is ignorance or the wrong identification. And he asks us to transcend it and get back to the reality. Because the consciousness is always there. And therefore, when we let go the object, what remains is the pure consciousness, the pure being consciousness. And by identifying ourselves with that and abiding as that and accepting that as our reality, Bhagavan says now we tend to become the water and not the froth. We identify ourselves as pure water, as nothing else at all, not as the froth. That is done by diving within. By diving within, not by an intellectual understanding of the brain or through thoughts, but by recognizing that is how the reality is, here and now, that we are the pure being consciousness, and whatever may come on that screen and go, the pure being consciousness never goes through a change. The water always remains as water, even though it appears as a bubble. And by only giving reality to the water and seeing everything as water, and we let go the wrong identification. And that is what Atma Vichara does to us. By repeatedly questioning Every time we have any thought or any object as experience, by inquiring to whom is this, who am I, and turning and making it as an opportunity to see that consciousness that we take it for granted, and turning our attention away from the object to that substratum, that screen, which enables us to experience the object here and now. And we recognize that screen never got transformed, no matter what all pictures, objects came and went. And more when we start to observe our real nature, that is when we wake up from this waking dream into the actual truth that we are, and we see the whole of the waking dream is also equal to the dream state. Nothing here is real except but the self. So, with the abundant grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path, for the next 20 minutes, no matter how many thoughts come, no matter what is the nature of the thought, we should diligently inquire to whom is this, recognize it is for me, and thereupon, by inquiring who am I, turn our attention to the source of the I, to the source which we refer to as I. By doing so, Bhagavan says, we here and now abide as the substratum, the screen, the self. And with repeated practice, he assures that the mind will get absorbed in the truth, in the self which alone is here and now. With this abundant grace, for the next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Over to Nandakumar ji.
Namo Ramana. I am standing in for car. I thought I will, on the topic of self-enquiry only, I will take up a verse from Ullathu Narpadu. The expediency being that I have been meditating on this verse in another morning satsang. So, forgive me for not going to talks or the Ramana Gita. I am taking up verse number 34, which is in the Anubhava segment of Ullathu Narpadu. என்றும் எவர்க்கும் இயல்பாய் உளப்பொருளை என்றும் எவர்க்கும் இயல்பாய் உளப்பொருளை ஒன்றும் உளத்துள் உணர்ந்த நிலை நின்றிடாது உண்டு இன்று உரு அரு என்று ஒன்று இரண்டு அன்றென்றே சண்டையுடன் மாயை சழப்பொழிக. This verse is on the Shastra Vasana. In Ullathu Narpadu Anubandham, there is a separate segment for Shastra Vasana, the attachment to the creeds. Leaving the sadhana, the intellect forms a like towards the creed it is following and a dislike or an aversion towards the other creeds, and employs itself in this work of defending. In Christianity they say apologetics, giving an apology or a defense for the creed you believe in, and naturally posit some negatives towards the other creeds that exist. This is to warn us against that and show that the Shastra Vasana is the most cruel of the Vasanas, because you are so close to truth, and instead of doing sadhana, you are employing the mind to argue. So that is the main import of the verse, is to alert that the jnani's state is beyond Shastra Vasana. Bhagavan would never ask what creed one is following and try to shift him to Advaita or anything. Will never do that. Not necessary. Because sadhana is the same in all the creeds. The removal of ahankara and mamakara is the sadhana. So let us see the verse. Endrum evarkum. Endrum is always. Evarkum is for all people. So endrum refers to all of time, and evarkum refers to all of personalities and all of place. Place in the sense space. One simple way to understand all of time is one moment repeated many times. So if we understand what happens in one moment, or we understand and know the nature of one moment, or we understand what is this one moment. Similarly, we know what happens in one unit of space. We know what is one unit of space, and we are what is one unit of space. Then that is repeated over many times to create a huge space or huge period of time. So the difference is only repetition of the same pattern for many times. Therefore, if you understand one unit, you understand the whole of time, the whole of space, and the whole of personalities. என்றும் எவர்க்கும் இயல்பாய் உளப்பொருளை. Another way to look at என்றும் எவர்க்கும் is it indicates omnipresence of the Supreme. என்றும் எவர்க்கும் இயல்பாய் உளப்பொருள். As their very nature, as their very swarupa, exists the ulapurul, that which is. So it is omnipresent. Omni, of course, means all. So sarva vyapi. What is that sarva vyapi vastu? That is our very nature, the ulapurul. Once you understand omnipresence, the omniscience and omnipotence are automatically given to the Supreme. That is why Bhagavan says, the Jnani is the best devotee, he is the best karma yogi, because the omnipotence of God becomes very clear once you understand it is all God. It is all one substance, it is all Ulapurul. So the omnipresence, once you understand as your very nature, that omnipresence of God is the very nature that is present within us as our very nature. And how can we experience it? Ondrum ulathul unarndu nilai. Sadhuvam Swamigal gives, to experience the omnipresence of God, who is present everywhere, the mind, which seems to arise from out of it as a separate entity, should lose that separateness, become one, and merge in the heart. Ondrum ularthul unarndu nilai. So the mind, which rises as a separate entity, as Dileep ji was saying in that question, that the questioner was identifying with the froth in the wave. That is what the mind does. Then what is the sadhana? The sadhana is, with who am I? Make the mind of ekachintana. Then nashametyada. The mind nature of going outside is destroyed. And one experiences the Ulapuru. Instead of remaining like that, instead of experiencing the Ulapuru like that, the omnipresent one like that, Undu Indru. That is theism and atheism. There is an atheistic conference. Some years back, I used to listen to those arguments that various atheists present. There would be a huge hall in the major cities would be hired, and this debate between atheists and theists would be going on. They would record how many number of believers are there before the meeting starts, and they will record at the end of the meeting, just to see which of the two debaters are winning the argument. They will take the statistics, record the beliefs before the meeting and after the meeting to see who has swayed the minds of the listeners. And in most of those meetings, the shift would be from theists to atheism. And I would be left wondering, where is this all going? That if atheism is going to spread like this. That is where Bhagavan comes in and says, don't worry in the argument between theists and atheists, but you go and be one with the Ullapurul. That which is, you identify with that. That is your job. Now, when you identify with that, you yourself don't have a mind to differentiate. It is neither theism nor atheism, because you are one with the Supreme. Where is the need for believing? Whether God is there or God is not there, where is the need for believing? Not even knowing, it is being the self. Therefore, Bhagavan says, instead of worrying about how this shift in belief systems is happening, whether they believe in God or not, they will have to come to the truth, because the truth is the self alone is. It is omnipresent, it is omniscient, it is omnipotent. The self alone is the reality. You abide in that. Don't worry about, and now take up the mic and go and argue in favor of those who are theists, those who are believers in God, and become apologetic branch of your religion. The theology which tries to defend their religious system is called as apologetics. And if we want to defend these things, then we will be doing apologetics for Bhagavan's teachings. Bhagavan says, don't do that. I am not interested in that. You abide in the self. So the undu indru uru aru is another popular branch of these belief systems, that God is with form or without form. Saguna upasana, nirguna upasana. There is this devotee who comes to Bhagavan and says that I have been practicing the Saguna Upasana for so long. I have been doing the Saguna Upasana for so long. Now I have come to realize that Saguna Upasana is inferior. Now how can I rectify this? And Bhagavan says, where you asked to do the Upasana, or where you asked to grade which is higher, which is lower, you keep doing Saguna Upasana itself, it will bring you to Nirguna if Nirguna is the truth. Otherwise, if Saguna is the truth, let it be. Why do you worry? You keep doing the Upasana, you keep doing your sadhana till the truth is reached. And Lakshman Sharmaji says, Bhagavan's teaching is that just encourage him to do the sadhana. Then automatically the oneness of the self he will come to. You need not worry which branch he is following or not following. So don't emphasize on the belief arguments. Emphasize only on the sadhanas, because in any creed, the sadhana would be to remove the mamakara or erase the ahankara. When either of this is completely removed, the other has to fall off. Without mamakara, the ahankara cannot stand. When the ahankara is uprooted, no mamakara can stand. So, undu indru, the theism and atheism don't have attachment for either. Don't try to defend. Bhagavan would be accosted by, I think, T.K. Sundareshayar. He will be fuming and fretting. He would have just come from the city and he will say, Bhagavan, you should scold me, you should take me to task. And Bhagavan will ask, why? What is wrong? And T.K. Sundareshayar will say, I am just coming back from town and somebody was talking about you disparagingly and I did not defend you at all. I just came away like that. Should I not be punished for that, for not defending you? Bhagavan says, no, you did the right thing. Patience, more patience. That is the way he says. Not trying to defend your system or offend somebody else's system. Patience in the outer arguments, because we have not come into this world to argue. We have come into this world to realize Bhagavan's feet, to realize the Atma Swarupa, and bring that self-realization, which is possible as our very nature. So, undu indru Uru, Aru. Then comes the major division to which we will be attached, the Advaita, Dvaita, Visishta Advaita. That is, Ondru, Irandu, and Rendu. Ondru is supposed to be Advaita, Irandu is supposed to be Dvaita, and Andru, it is neither one nor two, says Visishta Advaita. Which one do we belong to? And we have recorded this, that interestingly in every creed, we will find all the three arguments. The Advaitic argument will be there, the Dvaitic argument will be there, and the Visishta Advaitic, Sadhakattile Duvidam, Sadhyatil Advidam will be there. And Bhagavan says, don't even try to defend the Advaitic Marga. The shlokas here are not given as proof of something. Why these are not proof of the truth? Because in this world, which is a three-dimensional world, when you look out into the material world, it has length, it has breadth, it has height. It does not even have the emotion in it. We superimpose the emotions on that. The emotion is a dimension beyond length, breadth, and height. But it is within us. And we say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Therefore, there is happiness in more property, less happiness in less property. It is a construct from within. It is not there in the property. The property does not give value to itself. It is we human beings who have these valuations from within. We measure, we value. We say one who possesses more is more worthy, who possesses less is less worthy. Where is that? That is within us. Similarly, we will argue about our creed, the Advaita, and Lakshman Sharma says, these verses are not for argument, because Advaita is not something that can be expressed. Krityamasti kim is one statement, Likyate katam is another statement. Is there any action in Advaita? Krityamasti kim. So can you speak and reveal it? No. Is there any way you can write and express Likyate katam? So Advaita cannot be expressed. It is an Anubhava Nilay, says Bhagavan. It has to be experienced by us. So all these verses are not to disprove somebody. Somebody is talking about, let's say, what's happening in politics today, Sanatana Dharma, that this some argument is going on. It is not for us to go and argue and say that, see, Bhagavan has said, Namandri Nade, that without the eye rising, there is no Madhya Pradesh where one speech has been given. There is no Tamil Nadu where another speech has been given. There is no unit of bodies which are in one point of space or another point of space, or one point of time or another point of time. Therefore, if when somebody is arguing, this speech was great, that speech was very low, it is not for us to go and say that neither this speech, nor that place, nor that speech and Chennai or whatever place, they exist. Only the Atma Swarupa exists. It is not for arguing like that. But it is for your inner experience that this is not a reality. The power play, the saying that this will be gone or that will not be gone, all that arises only after the I arises. So not get involved in any kind of argument. Undrum ulakthul unarndu nilai nindidadu. Undu, indru, uru, aru, ondru, irandu, andrendre. Sandayidal. The moment we get into any argument, defending or offending, saying, now this is a real retort. I am so happy that this retort has come. This argument is so nice. That argument has set up itself for downfall. Therefore, we get into argument ourselves. And Bhagavan says that that is not the purpose of the teaching. The teaching is not to be used to win an argument. It is for Anubhava Nilai. That really, whenever the thought that I am in Bangalore comes, which is a constant feeling, let us say, when I am identified with this body, I feel I am in Bangalore, I am not in New York, and I am not in Tiruvannamalai at this moment, then I have a job to do. Who is it that feels he is in Bangalore? Who is it that feels he is in this moment of time? The answer will be I. Who am I? In that self-attention, even with Bhava Bala, we go to Swarupa. We go to the timeless, the placeless Atma Swarupa. And when the vasanas towards time and place are completely erased, then one naturally abides in the Ullapurul, as the Ullapurul. There, neither the arguments about the creeds nor any kind of arguments will be entered into, because there is no other to argue with. There is only one. There is only the Atma Swarupa, shining as I, beyond all kinds of disputations. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Namo Ramana Dileep ji.
Namo Ramana, sir. Apara Satchit Sukhabarirashe Yasyormimatram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabhiram Chinta Vihinam Hrudi Chintayami Chinta Vihinam Hrudi Chintayami. Namo Ramana. Thank you, Nandakumar ji. Thank you all.